Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Cat Chat Live. My name is Nancy Stevens, and I am glad to have you all here for today's discussion of life in the halls. In just a few moments, you'll get to meet my colleagues from the Office of Residence Life, and they have a lot of good information prepared for what it will be like for your student to be living in our wonderful residence halls this school year. So much of the focus right now is on move-in and setting up a great room for your student, and understandably so. But we know that move-in is just one day of the entire school year. And so I think today's discussion is really going to help you think ahead about what life is going to be like. But before we turn things over to Residence Life, I want to go through a couple of housekeeping items, as I always do. If you've watched a few of these Cat Chat Lives, you know how this runs now. But if you're new to us, want to make sure you have a sense of how things will go. You'll use the Zoom Q&A feature to ask questions of us. We will make plenty of time for your questions. We'll plan on going no more than an hour for today's discussion, but we'll make sure that you have time for questions. But first, Residence Life has some great slides prepared for you today. So we'd ask that you would hold your questions until the designated Q&A time at the end. My colleague Kate's going to be behind the scenes putting helpful links in the chat, websites you need to know, dates, contact information, things like that, to be looking for that as well. We are really going to focus the Q&A today on life in the residence halls. We did a really great webinar a couple of weeks ago with the housing office that went through all of the logistics of move-in and all of that, how the room layouts and things like that. So we'll refer you to those or to that webinar for those types of questions, and really focus the Q&A today on life in the halls. As I mentioned, we'll take as many questions as we can in the next hour. We know that folks are busy, and so we recognize folks don't want to watch a webinar that goes more than an hour. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted in the Cat Chat family community later this afternoon, so you can be looking for that if you aren't able to stay for all of today's discussion. If at any point you have questions about your students' UK experience, I encourage you to email parents@uky.edu whenever you're looking for assistance. The Parent and Family Engagement team will make sure you get connected with information. Your feedback is always important to us, and so after today's webinar is over, as well as in our subsequent communications, you'll see a link to a survey asking you to reflect on your experience with the Cat Chat Live webinar series and today's webinar, and to let us know what questions that you still have. We do have a few more Cat Chat Lives left in the series. This is the start of week 3, and so on Wednesday we'll be back for a discussion on campus safety with UK Chief of Police Joe Monroe. And then moving into our last week, we will be discussing things like K-Week and getting involved, financing UK, setting up students for financial wellness throughout their future. And then we'll be looking, I think I'm getting my weeks mixed up. Then as we wrap up the series, we'll be looking at how students can navigate conflict, and we will also be talking about academic resources that UK has available. The links for all of these webinars can be found in the Cat Chat family community. And if you're going to join us live, you can register for those there. If you're not able to join us live, that's totally understandable. You'll just go back to the Cat Chat family community and look for those recordings after the fact. Speaking of the Cat Chat family community, that's where you will find all of these recordings, all sorts of calendar or event calendars, information about all sorts of UK resources and things that we think it's important for parents and families of our students to know. So we hope that's been a helpful resource for you. Whenever you have questions about UK, we hope you'll remember to turn to the Cat Chat family community to get more information. All right, I think we've been navigating some technical difficulties with the slides behind the scenes, but I think we maybe have them all worked out now, which is perfect timing for me to turn things over to my colleagues, Brooke White and Kenyatta Jeter. They are really busy right now prepping for a full school year in the residence halls. They're busy with staff trainings and so on, so I really appreciate them making time to join us for today's discussion of life in the halls. So I'll turn things over to you. Take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to take some time to introduce ourselves. My name is Kenyatta Jeter, and I currently serve as the Associate Director for Living Learning Programs with the Office of Residence Life.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. My name is Brooke White, and I serve as the Assistant Director of Residential Conduct and Care. So excited to get to spend some time with you.
Thank you, Brooke. So we wanted to start a little bit and share with you all, who are we? So you'll hear two names a lot this year, and that will be, UK Housing and the Office of Residence Life. And it helps us to really understand that difference. And so UK Housing takes care of the facilities and the buildings, the rooms, the maintenance, that keeps the physical space running. But the Office of Residence Life, we take care of the people. So that's us, that's me and Brooke. And we focus on your students' experience, their safety, and their sense of belonging once they move in. There are a lot of us. We staff our desk for 24/7. We have over 240 resident advisors, over 100 desk clerks, and more than about 50 full-time staff. So what that means is for you simply is that at any hour of the day or night, there's someone at our front desk who your students can turn to for support and engagement. So let's put a little bit of faces to those names or those roles because these people are who your student will interact with every day. So our resident directors are our full-time living professionals who lead each hall. Then we have our resident advisors who are our RDs or our resident directors supervised. And these are the student staff who live right on the floor with your student. And there's their first point of contact and support. Then we have our community administrative assistants, and so they work our front desk from 8 to 4 generally, and manage, any kind of incoming mails, housing concerns, things of that nature. So they are there Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. Overnight, we have our night desk clerks and our night operations staff, and they keep the desk covered so the building is always monitored. And then we have some peer academic support. So our peer mentors, and they're also student staff, and they're focused on academic support and then engaging our students who may be a part of our living learning programs. And then we have our central office team, which Brooke and I serve on our central office team. And this team backs up everyone else who are in the halls. So the takeaway here is that your student is constantly surrounded by support, and it is a layered team of both peers and professionals. And so if they're ever unsure of where to go, any one of these people can put them in the right direction. So now I'd like to shift to how we will engage your student through what we call the Wildcat Way. And this is the heart of what we do, the heart of how we build community and we help students get connected. So the Wildcat Way is our intentional approach to residential life at the University of Kentucky. It isn't just about, giving your student a place to sleep. We want to build a framework for how we help them grow, how we help them connect and succeed, over their time while they're here with us on campus. It runs through everything that we do, the conversations that RAs have with their residents, the community building events that we host, everyday support that we give in the halls. And over the next few slides, I'll walk you all through, some specific ways that this shows up in the halls and with your students. And so hoping to share some things with you that your students already invited to once they get to campus. One of the most important pieces is what we call our CATS up sessions or conversations. And so these are intentional one-on-one check-ins between your student and their RA, and they happen 4 times a year, twice each semester. And so the acronym stands for CARE, academic success, time management, social well-being, and then the UP is the unique plan. And that represents what the RA and the student discusses during their conversation and the plan they settle on how to move forward. Should there be any type of concern that shows up, any type of thing that we might need to share for intervention from our professional staff that our student staff have shared with. And so again, there's that layered support around this process. This conversation happens in 2 parts. So first, your student would take the time to tell us how they're feeling. So we're trying to gauge their overall well-being, How are their roommate relationships going? Are they feeling engaged at the university? Are they feeling engaged in their hall? Do they feel like they belong here? And it's really an opportunity to build a genuine connection with their RA. So why did this matter? These checkups help us notice when a student might be struggling before it becomes a bigger problem, right? You can support this or help us support this at home by asking your student, hey, have you taken your CATS up survey? And encouraging them to complete it. And when they complete it, encourage them to be honest so that we can support them with what they need. And during that time, it is a live process, so it's ongoing. And so whenever your student submits their CATS up survey, we automatically get that response and can intervene according to whatever they may be struggling with. The first CATS Up kicks off September 1st. And so it's intentionally set to start a week after classes start so that students have that week of time to adjust and then tell us how they're feeling about their experience so far. And so we also know that, getting involved socially is a huge part of feeling at home. So we host signature events throughout the year. And signature events are designed to help students build meaningful connections, engage with folks in their residential communities, and learn any type of risk reduction behaviors in fun, approachable ways, right? So, for example, we have our first signature event. It's called Howdy Neighbor. And so each side of campus will host a Howdy Neighbor event. And within that event, we will be doing some speed friending so that students can meet new people quickly and form connections early, folks who live in their hall or people who live in their area of campus, right? And then another signature event that we're going to host in the fall is Solo Night. So let's say you haven't been able to find your people so far. Come to Solo Night, meet other solo people so you can build those connections and in a welcoming space to support each other as you're still kind of navigating what college life looks like, right? These are free events. They are right where your student lives and one of the easiest ways to make friends early, right? And so a great thing you can do as a parent is encourage your student to say yes to a few of these, especially within those first few weeks, right? So go make some friends, build connections with people who live with you or near you. And so beyond our bigger signature events, there are regular engagement built throughout the rhythm of the year. Each month, RAs will host floor meetings or floor events, and these are smaller scale. They're not the signature events, right? And so these are people in your building, on your floor. And a lot of times, this is where important information gets shared around policy, if we're closing for a break, any type of building wide information that needs to be shared. They get shared during these floor meetings. And floor events are where, maybe you share with your RA that, hey, I want to, plan a movie night or plan a game night. Those are smaller community building opportunities that we provide for our residents to, again, build connections right where they live. And so on top of that, there are several hall-wide events each semester that brings the whole building together. So, right, so your floor events is your floor, the hall-wide event is everyone in your hall. And so the more your student shows up to these events, the faster their floor or their building starts to feel like a community. So give them some encouragement from home to just go and be there, engage as much as possible, learn about more new people, and share about themselves as well, right? And so that'll go a long way to them building their experience and their belonging here at UK. And the last piece I'll share from my end is how we actually communicate with your student day to day, and that's through an app called Band. So your student will be asked to join their floors in hall band group during move-in so they can connect directly with their RA. The staff will post, upcoming events, any kind of reminders, and it's an easy way for residents to connect with others on their floor or in their hall. And so for parents, it's helpful for you to know, band is the main hub of, what's going on in your student's hall. And so if your students mention that they haven't joined yet, encourage them to do so they have, up-to-date information, don't miss events, and are able to connect with more folks in their building and on their floor.
Awesome. So I did want to talk a little bit about some of our university housing community standards that our students will follow when they live in the hall. So a few of the specific policies I wanted to note just because we see them the most often or might apply to you all if you come as a visitor to visit your student. We do have 24/7 visitation at UK, and so people can come visit your student anytime, but they do have to be checked in and checked out every time, and students have to escort their guests. So if you come to visit and take them out to dinner and you want to come up to their room, they just need to check you in, take you up, and then check you back out whenever you all are heading out to dinner. So that's important to know is that they are allowed to have visitors, but they do have to be checked in at the front desk and checked out. We do have a max of 3 overnight visit per 2-week period. So if your student wants to have overnight guests and have friends from home or whatever that may look like, come visit, they're able to do that as long as it doesn't exceed that time frame. And also for you parents, I wanted to make sure you all knew about our minor visitation policy. So if we have any siblings that are under 17, they aren't allowed to stay or visit without a parent or guardian, but they are definitely allowed to come up with you and see your student, etc. But if someone is 17, they are allowed to stay overnight in our residence halls with prior parent or guardian approval to do that. So if a younger sibling or friend wants to come stay, they are able to if they're 17. They just do need that prior parent guardian approval, which is a form on our website. Also did want to say Universal Housing Community Standard 4 alcohol. Alcohol is prohibited in all residence halls, as well as you'll see over here on the right, drugs and tobacco are prohibited on campus in all of our residence halls. And we do have some quiet hours that we've established as a community to support all of our students' well-being and having an academic and well-being focused environment. So on the weeknights, so I think about that as anytime there's class the next day, it's 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. And on the weekends, it's midnight to noon. And so we always have a 12-hour period of quiet hours throughout the evening. So also wanted to talk about some common transitional experiences that you student may see and how we can help with those. So living in the halls, we do have laundry available for students. Each facility has their own laundry facilities on different floors and different locations. And it is free to wash and dry for students. So we love that. They're able to do their laundry as they need. We just encourage them to stay with their laundry and be timely in getting that done. If they have any questions about what that looks like and how to operate the machines or anything, they can definitely connect with their RA or our front desks, and we'd be happy to help them with those. And also mail. So we might be asking how your student can get packages or how you may be able to send mail to your students. So the mail is actually delivered by our UK post office every weekday directly to the residence hall. And the mailing addresses are posted both on the website and above the mailboxes in the halls. So whenever you move in, if you actually walk over to the mailboxes, you'll see on each one at the top of it, there is the address listed. So you'll be able to see what your student's address is. And then we check those packages in. So your student will actually get an email when they've received a package that says, hey, your package is at the front desk or your package is in your mailbox. And the email indicates that for your student so that they're able to pick that up where it's appropriate for them. Letter mail does as well get put in their mailbox, but isn't checked in the same way and notified. But they'll get a mail key and can check their mail anytime. I know they love getting packages and things and care packages as they're able. So you'll definitely be able to send those to your student if you wish. So also wanted to talk about a common transitional challenge and strategies for support. And one of those is homesickness. So homesickness is extremely normal and expected at some point, especially in their first 8 weeks here at UK. They may feel that at some point, and we encourage them to kind of get some routines going. So are they going to bed at a similar time? Are they getting up at a similar time? Are they studying and building a block schedule for themselves, what that looks like? I think that can really help. And then for our parents, we really encourage you all to balance that communication with giving them some space. And so we definitely understand that they might want to connect with you, and we want you to connect with them because you're one of their main supporters, but also giving them that space to make all those friends and to go to the events and get connected and encouraging them to do that in that way. And then if your student is experiencing homesickness and is struggling with that, we have all kinds of resources we would love to connect them to. And so connect with their RA or their resident director, and we'd be happy to get them connected in the community, help them meet someone with a similar hobby in their hall, whatever that may look like for them. And I also did want to talk a little bit about roommate conflict. Sometimes that comes up as a transition piece. And the main things I want to stress are conflicts are so normal. I'm sure many of you can think of a conflict you may have had when you may have been in college or when you're in your career or anything like that. Conflicts happen everywhere. It's a normal part of life, and that's okay. And we really want to normalize that for our students. And then the roommate agreement process, we do have roommate agreements for our students. So those launch the same day as CATSUP, so that's September 1st. So we have extensive documents based on their room types where they can sit down with their roommate and have a conversation. Oh, hold on. Sorry. They can sit down and have a conversation with their roommate about all these different topics, right? The roommate agreement will cover different cleaning expectations. It will cover visitation and how often you want visitors or how you notify your roommate about that. It will also cover noise levels and temperatures in the room. So it's a pretty extensive document. So really encourage your student to sit down and go through that with their roommate so that they can have those conversations ahead of time and come to an agreement that works for both of them. And their RA is able to sit down with them too. If a conflict does come up though, we really focus on teaching our students self-advocacy and communication skills. So we're really gonna encourage them to talk to their roommate about that concern, and we can help them get the tools and verbiage of how to talk to their roommate about that. And then sometimes we may engage in some conflict mediation or facilitated dialogue around that to make sure that we are coming to a cohesive, harmonious living environment. And sometimes that may end up like a student may need to change rooms or desire to change rooms. And so the RDs and RAs are able to assist with that if need be when the time comes. But there's lots of resources for conflicts. So just tell your student to reach out to their RA, and we're definitely happy to help get that going as soon as they feel that there might be a situation. And then another transitional issue is just academic pressure and time management. So there often is an increased academic rigor of college, and sometimes our students have concerns about that. And so lots of resources on campus for that. They also tell us a lot that they are worried about balancing academic, social life, and self-care, since the university structure is a lot less structured, I guess, than a high school schedule is. And so we have integrated success coaching and different resources at Transformative Learning to help students figure out how to find that balance for themselves. And like I said, mentioned lots of resources. Sometimes our RAs may host study groups, Transformative Learning, who I just mentioned with the integrated success coaching, and they're able to help with that as well. And then all of our residence halls have academic learning centers, or ALCs as we sometimes call them, which are great common area study spaces that students can go to have a place outside of their room to study. Maybe they can focus in if they're not laying in bed and the TV's there to distract them, etc. But also they could engage with other folks who may be in the academic learning centers as well. So that is the end of our formal presentation for you all. Here's our contact info here. And then now I'll turn it back over to Nancy for any questions that may have come up.
Thank you so much for reviewing all of that with us. Folks, we're ready to take your questions. So use the Zoom Q&A feature to ask away. Again, I'd encourage you to focus your questions really on kind of what happens after move-in. And Kate's put the link in the chat to some of the other Cat Chat Live recordings if you want to go back and watch the one that we did with the housing office on move-in, or with UK Hospitality if you have questions about dining on campus. All right, so questions are starting to come in. So Roseanne's asking, when will we hear more about LLPs? So do y'all have a sense of how the LLPs are communicating with their residents?
Yeah, I guess Rosanna, if you can give me a little bit more detail in terms of, are you wanting to hear about whether when your student moves into their LLP, what their schedule is? Um, LLPs move in the 17th, 16th, 17th. Um, each community will host their own orientation with their student, and so the LP directors have been communicating back and forth, or should have been communicating with your students back and forth about what they should be expecting once they get here and moved in. And so again, that will happen, and then there will be different things happening throughout K Week that will the college will host for their LP students, and like pick your path things, college meetings, things of that nature. And so I would encourage your student to check out their UKY email just to see if there's any communication that has already come through, um, so that, or reach out to the director if they haven't received anything yet.
Yeah, Roseanne clarified that that's about prior communication. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing contact information for all of the LOPs is on the website there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we've got a couple of questions about visitation and overnights. Kelly says on the 17-year-old visitor parent approval requirement, is that the student's parent who needs approval or the visitor's parent who is granting approval for that visit?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's the visitor's parent. So if you had a child who is 17 who's visiting a friend who's here at UK, the parent of the 17-year-old would need to give permission for their student to come stay overnight within our facilities. Yeah.
All right, and so then similar topic, how does the overnight work? It says if you're in a twin bunk, where do they sleep? Shouldn't the others be okay with it? And then also asking how students get this information.
Yeah. So um, they do a lot of various things kind of, but the roommate agreement specifically has questions for our students who are in the bunked room that says, are we going to allow visitors? Are we going to allow visitors to stay overnight? If so, where will they sleep? And how will we notify each other that we're going to do that? And so we really leave that up to the students who live in that bunked room together to discuss and figure out what makes sense for them. I know some people, may have an air mattress or whatever they may decide to do if they have overnight visitors. But we really, like I said, leave that up to the students to determine, are they going to allow overnight visitors in their bunked room? And if so, what is that and that notification going to look like? So that they're able to do that. And students actually get this information in meetings with their RA. Sorry, my slides keep messing up on me here. But students are able to get that in a meeting with their RA. So they have a first floor meeting that happens on the Wednesday that assisted move-in in. So assisted move-in ends on I think it's the 19th is the right date, the Wednesday, the 19th. And they have a floor meeting with their RA that day before K Week really kicks off, where they share all this kind of information with your students. And then if they ever have any questions, their RA or the front desk that's always open is a great place to go to answer any questions they may have.
All right, that is helpful. And I'm going to try to remember to come back to another question I personally have for you all about roommate agreements in a second, but I want to finish up this person who had asked about the overnights and how students get information. Also ask about with laundry and if the washers and dryers are locked so others can't open them. So maybe you all can speak a little bit to kind of how laundry works, particularly when it comes to you know, occasionally I'll hear students say, well, folks aren't moving their stuff in a timely manner. So maybe how are you all communicating some of that with the students?
Yeah, that's a great question. So they're locked while they're running, but then after a load is finished, they do unlock. And so that's why I really encourage students to stay in the laundry room or set a timer on their phone. If it runs for it has a timer on it. So if it runs for 21 minutes, maybe set a timer for 16 minutes and come on back downstairs and be ready to move that over. If there are any concerns about people moving other people's laundry or people not doing their laundry in a timely manner, I encourage them to let the front desk know, and we're happy to address that. We do have a policy in our university housing community standards about attending to your laundry in a timely manner, as well as not touching or misusing the machines. And so, if there are any concerns about how that's happening, I definitely encourage them to go to the front desk. But really, I think just being ready to be in the laundry room right then to change it over is the most helpful.
For sure. All right, Lisa has a question about laundry as well. She says, if the laundry room is full, can they go to another floor or to a nearby residence hall?
So some buildings have multiple laundry rooms and some buildings only have one laundry room. So if you are in a building where there's multiple laundry rooms, yes, of course, you can go to another floor. But if you're in a building that's only one, then that would be the only one you would have access to. And you can't go to another building for their laundry because we do have restricted access. And so the residents of that building would be the only one who would have access to that laundry room.
All right, so we've got a question about mail. Where on campus can students take outbound FedEx packages that have prepaid labels to, yeah, where can they be dropped to go out? So like if a student's doing a return or something like that, we can put the link to the campus post office up in the chat as well.
Yeah, so they can go to the campus post office, I think, to drop those off. And then FedEx also delivers to our building. And so if you schedule your pickup, you can bring if I remember correctly, you can bring your package down to the front desk and the CAA will send it out when FedEx comes to pick up their packages or drop off their packages.
Perfect. I didn't know how it worked exactly in the halls. I knew about the kind of wider campus post office. All right. Lisa's asking, are there any other food or drink restrictions other than alcohol? What's the process for students cooking in common areas?
So I would say the only restriction that we have outside of alcohol is no, there are prohibited items that you cannot cook in the room with, right? And so I would say to revisit that what to bring and what not to bring list. Each building does have kitchens in their building, and we have pots and pans that folks can check out at the front desk to use. If you are going to cook in the kitchen, then we recommend that you stay with your food while you're cooking in the kitchen. And then obviously, if you're bringing food in your room, it'd be nice to talk with your roommate about any allergies that they may have so that you guys are on the same page when cooking. And then if you do use a common space cooking space, we would encourage you to just obviously clean up behind yourself so that we aren't doing any cross contamination or anything like that.
Getting back to laundry quickly, Sheila's asking if students bring their own laundry detergent, and I'll add on to that. Do you all have recommendations? I know I've seen a lot of chatter over the years about are pods best? Is liquid best? Don't know if there is a conclusive answer on that.
Yeah, so students are required to bring their own laundry detergent. I think I would follow the directions on the postings in the laundry room. So only using, the correct amount of detergent that you would need to use, and the amount of pods that you would need to use, because sometimes it can cause the machine to, malfunction if we are using too much, as well as the amount of clothes that you put into the laundry machine. You want to be cognizant of that as well, and not overload the machines because it can cause oversudsing and extra water and things like that. So just there are posters in the laundry rooms that help you navigate how to appropriately use the laundry machine.
Yeah, there's still time for tutorials at home as well.
Yes.
All right, Paige is asking what the penalties are for violating any of the rules and community standards that you reviewed.
Hi, Paige. That is a great question. So it totally depends on what the policy that was violated is. But what I can share is we have a very robust student conduct process. And so sometimes that may mean a student is sent a letter in their email that says, hey, make sure that you're checking in your visitor. But if it continues to happen, then it may mean a informal conduct meeting where we're meeting with the student and making sure they understand the policies and are able to learn and grow from those pieces. But we really try for our conduct process to be really restorative, to check in on the student in their well-being at UK, but also for them to understand their part in keeping our community safe by following the policies and by encouraging their peers to do the same. So it really depends on what the charge is, but like I said, we really try to be really restorative in that and just help them learn the policies and reflect and grow in that process.
All right, we don't have any open questions right now, so folks may be typing in things that are on their mind. So one question that I wanted to come back to you all about, you talked about the roommate agreements, and I'm sure that this will come up when we do the webinar a little later with the Office of Student Conduct, looking at some teaching our students conflict resolution and things like that. From your perspective, and I'd be interested in hearing from one or both of you on this, how can we get students to really be honest in those roommate agreements? I do think that those tend to come at a point early on in the year where they're wanting to be very cool and laid back about things and sometimes don't express really honestly what some of their needs and wants are. And so how do you all advise families to maybe prepare their students for going into those roommate agreements?
Yeah, that's a great question, Nancy. I think a lot of our folks you may have seen if you went to your BB&O already and stopped by our Res Life table. We had resources we were giving out, which we call a self-reflection guide. And it was some questions, and we'll have these in the residence halls if your students didn't get it, and we're happy to give it to them. But for them to really reflect on what do I need? What does that look like? Have I ever lived with someone before? What were my expectations of them? What are the kind of things that I do want to talk to my roommate about or don't want to talk to my roommate about? So I encourage them now to do some self-reflection on what that looks like. But I think what's really important that we really try to share with our students is the roommate agreement is a living document. And so we do recognize that that happens in early September, and that sometimes what you thought would work for you and your roommate in September isn't what works for you all in October, because your expectations or the level of impact that a decision in the roommate agreement has changed. And so that is, like I said, it's a living document. We encourage them to go to their RA, and we can come back to that agreement. We can change what that agreement says to meet the needs as our needs of our students change, especially for our first year students who maybe never have lived in a room with someone else. Like I said, we just encourage them to think about it like that so that they know, okay, let's think about what I need and let's have those hard conversations of, no, like I love that you have your partner, but maybe I don't want them to visit every weekend and what that looks like. So encourage them to have those hard conversations in the front end and to know that if the needs change, the roommate agreement is able to be changed as those needs change.
The only thing I would add is, I know that it is challenging as maybe you've shared a room before, maybe you have not shared a space before, and having that conversation can automatically make you feel like there's a conflict happening there, right? But the key is to think about like we are having a shared space, and we want to make sure that we're approaching these conversations with that mindset. And if you ever feel like, I'm just in a space I'm not comfortable having that conversation, you do, to Brooke's point earlier, you have your RA or even your RD who can help you manage through that conversation or have that conversation with your roommate so that you both get your needs met.
I think you both make great points. And one of the things that I always reflect on is that families tend to have a fairly good sense of what kind of roommate their student might be because the families are the ones who have been living in community with their student to this point. And so I would encourage you to, for parents and families to have conversations with their students about what it means to live in community, what they would expect of others, and therefore what they should expect of themselves. And I think we as parents and families kind of know, our students maybe need some encouragement about picking up after themselves or taking on their share the responsibility for keeping a space clean. So I think families can help, guide that conversation a little bit on the front end before students even get into the halls. All right, we've got a couple more questions that have come in. The first one's a great one. It says, what's the process for becoming an RA or getting a job in the residence halls?
Yeah. So currently our night desk position, if you are a night owl and you can hang, I cannot. but from 12 a.m. to 4 a.m. or 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. Your residence hall might be hiring night desk clerks. And so really encourage you all to apply to that position. It is currently posted. So if you want to work the front desk, and then that'd be a great opportunity for you to learn how community is built, how you build relationship with residents who are in your building, and use that as an opportunity to speak about if you apply to be an RA. And that application opens typically first week of October, and it will stay open for the whole month. And then we will kick off interviews for RA candidates in November of this year. And so it is a really quick turnaround. So definitely do your best to get engaged on campus, so you can speak to some of those experiences during your interview, if you choose to apply. So definitely a great student leader position to get on campus. You gain a lot of skills in community building, crisis management, um, some of those soft skills, some customer service, things of that nature. And so really encourage your students to, get involved as much as possible and definitely apply to be an RA.
All right, Dell is asking, are there vacuums or other cleaning supplies in the dorm? So what is available, shared use in the halls, and what should students plan on bringing themselves? And I know Kate's already got the what to bring and what not to bring list in the chat too.
Yeah, so I would say that the amount that's available at each hall is different, right? It's very dependent upon the RDs will buy what they feel like their students have asked for the most, but you should be able to get a vacuum at the front desk, but you won't find cleaning supplies. We don't purchase cleaning supplies for students to use. You would need to buy your own to clean your own personal space.
Yep, and that anticipated a question that Sheila had asked about, are students solely responsible for cleaning their rooms and bathrooms? So again, we mentioned laundry tutorials. This might also be a good time to review cleaning the bathroom. All right, Crystal's asking, at what point in the school year should students have a roommate determined for the next school year? I think this is part of the process that sometimes catches folks off guard, that the housing application for the next year opens up fairly early on in the fall semester, just because we know that the off-campus options start kind of get in students' faces and wanting them to consider their options for the next year.
Absolutely. This is presents a challenge because returner students do have to apply for housing very early. I would encourage your students to, as we mentioned, really take time to try to get to know people within the month of, once they get here to September. Hopefully it's working out with their roommate at that time, or if they meet other people that, they have formed a connection with, to try to settle on, who they would like to room with. Our returning halls are University Flats and Boyd Hall. And so that's where you'll see most of our returner students live the next year. So really taking some time. I know that is tight. So applying early, very, very early is your best bet if they want to return to campus the next year.
Yeah, and you may have said this while I was reading some of the other questions, but students can cancel. Also, I'd encourage folks to go ahead and apply early in the fall semester, keep their options open. We make students and families aware of what the cancellation deadlines are if they change their minds. But students maximize their options if they go ahead and apply early in the semester. All right, another question just came in. Are students allowed to have outside cleaning and laundry?
So outside laundry, I'm assuming you're referencing someone coming to pick up your laundry, bring it
Yeah,
back
like
to
I'm
you.
assuming a delivery service.
Yeah, that's fine. But with a cleaning service, you would have to, the student would, if you are inviting cleaning services, they would be like a guest or a visitor of the hall. So they would have to escort them and be with them the entire time they're in the hall. And they won't be able to be, by themselves. If there are students in class, like your student would have to be there. And you would need to check in with the roommates that are there if you're going to have someone else in the space or a cleaning group in the space, cleaning, your space. And so having that conversation as well with everyone in the room.
Yeah, I think your point's well made about it. Any service would be treated like a guest. And so if it's meant to be a time saver for this student, then they still have to be in the halls. The other thing, and obviously, different situations have different nuance to them, but Whenever I get this question, I always try to encourage families to think through like, well, when is your student going to learn how to balance all of these things? I think it's done as a convenience for the students, certainly, but this is also a learning opportunity for them to figure out how to navigate their academics and taking care of their space and so on. And so, while I never say never, I think that it can be a good learning experience for students to take that on as well. All right, we've got about another 10 minutes left. We've answered all our open questions, but still have time for a few more if folks want to ask those. Um, One other question that I wanted to get your all's thoughts on, Kenyatta, you made really good points earlier about, how families can encourage students to attend events and build community. Maybe you could speak a little bit more about things that you've seen that work well, or, times that you've seen students maybe be reticent to attend things and how maybe families could intervene. I think students are so eager to meet people and get involved, but sometimes it's really hard for them to take the first step. And the first step is often, opening the door in their residence hall and putting themselves out there. So I know you all have staff to help students navigate that, but any further tips or things that parents and families can be doing?
I would say what we've seen most is people, they want to make connections, but don't necessarily know how, or um, don't feel comfortable, or it's weird. Like I think you hear the word, "Wow, that's weird," so often, right? But I think when you're around everybody who feels like it's weird, that's a great way to start that conversation, right? And so I think just what I said earlier, just tell them to go. You never know what you might experience. Never know, you might meet someone that you were have the same things in common with. And again, some of these, the cake week can be overwhelming, right? We already know that it's all the first year students at one event. But if your hall is having smaller events, or if your area is having smaller events, and you feel like I'll be more comfortable in this space, super awesome opportunity to go outside of your hall or in your hall and meet folks who you might be connected with. If you are in a living learning program, these are the people you're going to be in class with all the time, living in the halls all the time. So great opportunity to connect with those individuals, form study groups, form, social connections and things of that nature. So start small, but don't hesitate from the bigger events as well, because there are over 8,000 people who live on campus with us, right? And so that's a big number. So it's an awesome opportunity for people to connect. So just really encouraging your students to just take that first step. And if they feel like that's hard, tell them to connect with their RAs. Their RAs are going to be learning everybody who's on the floor, and they're going to learn their habits. They're going to learn their hobbies, and then they can make connections. So maybe your student might have the same hobby as another student on the floor, and the RA can connect them if they feel like they don't have anything in common with anyone on the floor because they haven't met them yet. So the RA is an awesome opportunity to help form connections and get them to meet each other and make UK their home away from home.
Yeah, I think your point is well made about all of the opportunities at the beginning of this semester. And, we know that that's when students are maybe at their most overwhelmed, and we want them to, do whatever little thing they can do to, put themselves out there and attend some of those events. Because, yeah, to your point, early in the fall semester is when everybody's looking to find their people. And I've even seen families over the years who have maybe tried to incentivize their student going to things. I've seen families who made like a bingo card for their students to complete and said, hey, you do however many of these items or whatever, and we'll send you a care package, or we'll Venmo you, or do something, some way to incentivize it. And of course, on the university end, we're incentivizing it with free food and free t-shirts and UK Invest dollars and things like that.
The only other thing I'll add to Nancy, of course, we are in the DOS area working on, in the student success area working on the Wildcat First 8. And so in this space, we don't know that within the first 8 weeks, students are really trying to decide, is UK for me? And so three areas that we're going to encourage your students to focus on. And we encourage you all to have your students to focus on finding their people, finding their place, and finding their pathway. So 3 Ps. Who are your people? Can you establish your people in those first 8 weeks? Where's our place on campus that you feel like, hey, I'll connect with all these people, whether that's in the student center. Maybe that's the MLK Center. Maybe that's your residence hall. Maybe that's your academic building. So that's your place. And then your pathway, like what are some paths, that you can utilize to help you make those connections as well. So three things: people, place, and pathways. And that's how you're going to form those great connections early on within those first 8 weeks of the semester.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn more about what you all have planned there and to share it with families as well. One of the other things that I reflect on as I think about this is all of the great stories I've heard over the years from students who talk about, the random friendships made just because they were willing to say hi to somebody in like the residence hall elevator or in the laundry room, or I'm sure you all have even more examples of those than I do. So I think sometimes giving your student a pep talk about like, yeah, you may feel weird saying hi to a stranger in the elevator, but it's only as weird as you decide to make it. And, I think the safe thing to do is like to be staring at their cell phones or like having AirPod in and be tuning everything else out, but then they miss some of those opportunities to connect with those living closest to them. Do y'all have any great kind of stories that come to mind in terms of the connections made just by, randomly being in the same space in the hall?
I would say I have like a personal experience with that in that when I was a student at UK living in the residence halls, my friend group and I just kind of started, like my roommate and I and our suite mates, because we were in the side where we had suite mates, or the room type where we had suite mates, and we would just hang out in the common area. And then other people started coming and hanging out in the common area. And then all of a sudden, every night, that was just a tradition. We'd go to the common area, we'd watch The Bachelor, we'd watch the Super Bowl, we'd study, we would do whatever in that space just because we were hanging out there and it was an open space and people knew that they could join, and we would have people invite people to come do that. And so, definitely rings true for me in my UK experience, but I love getting to see our students like do the same thing, especially in those common spaces, and utilize those as a place to know that they can go and talk to whoever may be sitting there and connect with them.
Oh, I love that, Brooke. And I think there's such power in being the student who's like the connector or, and it invites people to go do something. For some students, that's gonna be really awkward and uncomfortable, but for other students who maybe are a little bit more outgoing, I think they can really start to build those connections with others. I always joke about folks having their emotional support extroverts. So maybe your student can be that for somebody else. Well, the only thing that's in the Q&A right now is a compliment from Sheila saying this was great information. Thank you. So with our remaining minutes, I would love to give you both a chance to share any final thoughts or reflections based on our time together today.
Super excited to have you all come in a couple weeks. We have our staff gearing up with training right now. The RAs are going to be coming in toward the end of the weekend as well. So getting ready to be prepared to receive you all and welcome you all to campus. So excited to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. We truly believe that living on campus is such a transformative experience, and we really want to do whatever we can to make sure your student has a great experience on campus. So please reach out. We'd always love to hear from you, and we're so excited that you're going to be here so soon.
Well, thank you so much to Kenyatta and Brooke and to the whole Residence Life team. I know you are representing a much larger group of staff on campus who are busy making plans for the fall semester and this upcoming school year. And you all do such great work on campus. They're really beautiful spaces, but a space is only a space. You all are what really makes it a community and a home for our students. And so we're excited that we're getting a little closer to welcoming everybody back into the halls. Kate's put a reminder in the chat. I don't know that I mentioned Family Weekend at the top of our time together, but I always want to plug the opportunity for you all to come back and be on campus with us at the end of September, and all of the details that you need there are on the website that Kate linked to. Kate, thanks for being there behind the scenes with all of the good information folks need to connect to university websites and so on. Families, we appreciate you making time to join us today. We hope we'll see you on Wednesday for our conversation with UK Police Chief Joe Monroe about campus safety. We hope this and all of the other Cat Chat Live webinars are really helpful as you make plans to support your student during their UK journey. But with that, we'll wish you a great rest of your day and take care. Bye, everyone.